Everybody, welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the HBO Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John. Awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, join us. We gather together to talk about our favorite things in the world, news, a little bit of television, all sorts of good stuff. And, of course, if we're talking about good stuff, and we're here on a Monday, descending from his clouds, from his verisimilitude, that is us, it is one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, the Pet Shop Boys and New Order just announced a tour together, and I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. Let me just tell you why I couldn't be happier. New Order is one of my all-time favorite bands. Of course, they descended from Joy Division. And then the Pet Shop Boys sang the song Opportunities. I've got the brains, you've got the looks. Let's make lots of money.
Oh, I remember that song. That was a good song. It was a good song.
Anyway, I can't wait.
Anyway, guys, how are you guys doing at this beginning of a brand new week? I hope you have a fabulous week of triumph and victory in front of you guys. I hope you guys also had a wonderful weekend. By the way, don't know if any of you guys watched. I'm not a big boxing guy, but I hope a lot of you guys had a chance to watch that Wilder Fury fight. That was something, man. That was something. Okay, listen, guys, we do have a whole bunch of things to talk about here today. First of all, seems like there's a new Star Wars movie coming, and I don't care. I can't believe I've ever said that before, but I don't care. We'll talk about that and a little bit of reason why. Apparently, Kevin Feige was this close to quitting and walking away from the MCU over his right and ability to make female lead films. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. We know there's a brand new streaming service, HBO Max, coming. And it's going to be on YouTube TV? How the hell is that going to work? That and Sonic the Hedgehog continues to be number one at the box office, but a little bit further behind than what a lot of us, including me, thought it would be at. That and a few things more. But before we get to any of those things, guys, let's go right off the top with this. Rob, you and I are both dog guys. We're both dog guys. I've had dogs my whole life. I have dogs right now. Lily and Shadow are downstairs as we speak. My dad was the vice president of the Canadian Beagle Association. Grew up with, that wasn't his job, that was his side gig. But, I mean, I grew up with dogs my whole life. I'm a dog guy. You've got dogs. And only dog owners can really know just how attached and a part of a family a dog can be and become.
Yes.
Well, I saw a really sad story here and something really moving to me, actually. Apparently, we all know James Gunn is currently shooting his Suicide Squad movie. They're getting close to wrapping up there, or they may have even done it by now. But James Gunn, apparently his dog, he got word that his dog of 17 years was dying, was about to die. He stopped production on his movie, and the studio was cool with it. And the cast was cool with it. He stopped production. By the way, that may not sound like a big deal, but shutting down production on a movie costs thousands of dollars per minute. Thousands of dollars per minute. And I don't even know, I hesitate to venture a guess about how much it probably cost him overall, but so that he could go home and be with his dog when they put his dog down. And I thought that was incredibly gracious of the studio. I thought that was incredibly gracious of the cast. And I think it says a lot because, again, I get it. There are people who are not dog people that hear that and go, wait a minute, you shut down production of a whole movie over a dog. I get it. I do. I completely understand that mindset if you're not a dog owner. But James Gunn was. And at the risk, this is James Gunn's dog. It was just a beautiful looking dog. I wanted to read this, and forgive me for getting into it, but I did want to read this because this is one of the most touching things I've ever read somebody write about their dog. James Gunn wrote the following. I love this. The clip-clop of your toenails against the wood floor behind me was the soundtrack of my life. For nearly 17 years, you were with me. You spent more time, I spent more time with you than any other being on this planet. You've lived with me across the world, in Los Angeles, in London, in Malibu, in Atlanta. You roamed the sets of my films and roamed into more than one shot. You were with me through my successes and my failures, and you didn't care a whit about either of them as long as I was there for a cuddle, a belly rub, a wrestle, a walk, or a treat. Every night you would fall asleep cuddled or curled tightly against my side, and every morning you would lick my calf good morning while I peed. When I had to be away in a hotel room and couldn't sleep, I'd take a pillow from the bed and put it against my side and pretend it was you. It usually helped. Through a divorce and a chaotic single life and various relationships, you were my one true constant. And in my darkest hours, you were the slim tether of love and joy that kept me connected to this fragile life. To the world, you were Dr. Wesley Von Spears, or Von Spears. But to me, you were just Wesley. And the best friend I ever had. I love you, buddy. Thank you for making me a better man. Wesley passed away peacefully in my arms last week. The crew, cast, and studio were kind enough to allow me to shut down production in Panama and fly home to be with him. Although Jen and I are both heartbroken, Jen is, of course, Jenna Fisher from The Office, who is James's ex-wife, and Wesley was their dog together. Although Jen and I are both heartbroken, we know Wesley had an amazing long life filled with people who loved him and wise and compassionate veterinarian care. Anyway, it goes on as well. And Rob, as a dog owner, I'm reading this and I'm like, fuck Suicide Squad, who cares? I'm reading that and I was very touched. And again, I think it's only something that a dog owner can appreciate. But Rob, your thoughts, was it appropriate though? Because look, it costs a lot of money to shut down a production. What do you think about Warner Brothers being cool with James Gunn shutting it down to fly home to be with his ex-wife and their dog as their dog passed away?
Well, on one hand, as somebody, and you're a producer, it's pretty amazing. I mean, as a producer, I would say no. But on the other hand, your director is the captain of the ship. And your director sets the tone for the day. And if your director is not fully focused 100% on what's going on, what you're going to get that day, all the money that you're spending is going to be for naught if you're not getting good material. And as Mr. Gunn pointed out, that dog has been on his sets. The cast and crew of his movies know that dog. They know how much that dog means to him. And I think what they did was not only a compassionate thing to do, that shows humanity where sometimes we don't see a lot of humanity. But on the other hand, I also think it was a practical business decision. And I think everybody wins. I think the studio wins. I think James Gunn and his family wins. And most of all, the audience will win because the movie is not compromised. And James Gunn, for somebody who had that deeply felt of a connection, animals, they are part of the family. And it's, people are more intimate with their dogs. I mean, their dogs lay all over them all the time. You wake up with your dogs, like James Gunn said, and when they're gone, there is a definite void in your life. So kudos to Warner Brothers for making this decision. And you know what? I can't help. I'm glad James shared this with people on social media. So there's no, you could imagine the stories, James Gunn let go, or James Gunn leaves the set, or some ridiculous thing. I mean, I think it was handled well by all involved. So. And my heart goes out to James for his loss.
Anyway, guys, how do you feel about that? By the way, maybe you're a pet owner, maybe you're not. I'm curious to know how our feelings differ based on whether we're pet owners or not. But what do you feel about James Gunn taking off to be with his family and his dog, the passing of his dog? And what do you feel about Warner Brothers being cool with it? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's do one more thing off the top, and that is this. Now, of course, we know one of the movies in production right now that we're all very excited to see, at least I'm excited to see it. I'm not going to speak for the rest of you, but I'm excited to see it, is Venom 2. I had more fun with Venom 1 than I ever would have expected, and certainly had more fun with Venom 1 than I should have. I mean, it's just, I had a gloriously good time with it. I didn't think it was one of the best films of the year or anything when it came out, but I thought it was a hell of a lot of fun, a lot better than I thought it would be. Anyway, Venom 2 is, of course, in production. The other day, we got a little bit of a peek at Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, but now we've got some more photos from the set of the film that Tom Hardy and one of his photographers has actually put out, a photographer by the name of Greg Williams. And here we see our first picture. We've got Tom Hardy with Woody Harrelson, which looks great. It clearly looks like they're having a good time. And then Tom Hardy posted a picture of himself with Andy Serkis and I believe the writer of the film, Marcel. hanging out on set, which looks great, by the way. Another from the photographer of him, just Tom Hardy just looking badass doing what Tom Hardy does, which is pretty cool. And then another one of him, another kind of behind the scenes sort of, clearly you can see he's on set and stuff like that, having a good time and having a lot of fun. And Rob, I'll tell you what, while this is not important stuff we're looking at, this is not important key things, to me, as somebody who's really looking forward to Venom 2, it says something when the star of the film, and really one of the creative forces behind it, in Tom Hardy, is basically has no patience. He cannot wait to share his experiences with everybody. He's clearly having a great time on set. Like, doing this type of promotion right now isn't necessary, but he's clearly having a really good time on set. It looks like everybody's having a lot of fun. It looks like he's having a ball. And just knowing that he's having that good of a time and he's so anxious to share some of his experience with his followers. Look, this does not mean, I know there are going to be people who misquote me on this. This does not mean the movie is in fact a great movie. Not at all. But what I am saying is it's at least a positive sign, Rob, when you see a guy who's this enthusiastic about it, who's having this much fun with it, and he's so anxious to share images with his fans about this process he's going through right now. I take it as a good sign. Again, I'm not saying that means the movie's going to be good. It could be a total car wreck. But this is at least a good sign to see the guy this enthusiastic and having this much fun. And I thought it was pretty cool seeing those images. Like, seeing him and Woody Harrelson together is great. Seeing Andy Serkis in the shot with him, I just thought it was pretty cool to see. Rob, what did you make of these photos?
Well, first of all, as somebody who's documented movies, on DVDs and Blu-rays, I love seeing behind the scenes photos. And I thought when I was working on something like Superman Returns, and at the same time Peter Jackson had a video crew doing blogs about King Kong, that weekly video blogs would have become a thing. And they didn't really. We saw it recently with Kevin Smith making Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
Right.
And I like that. And I think seeing, like, when you see an actor especially who's tweeting photos, I mean, these behind the scenes photos are nothing but joyous. You know what they say to me, John? They say that we are Venom.
Yes.
And all of us. And I think there's a level with social media now, and that you can interact with people like The Rock on Instagram. His Instagram game is strong. And when Tom Hardy's putting these things out, we as an audience, look, we're talking about it now. We feel a loyalty to this movie already. Whether you loved Venom or just liked Venom or had a good time or didn't, you can't deny the enthusiasm if your lead actor is having a good time. Can you imagine? I mean, I can only imagine what Woody Harrelson, Tom Hardy, and Andy Serkis, I mean, I can't imagine how much fun that set's got to be on. To make this movie. I mean, it's not like they're trying to make War and Peace in the middle of, giant muddy conditions or whatever. They're probably having the most fun of their lives right now. And I think they want to share it. And I love that. I love that because by extension, as a movie fan, I want to know that the people I admire are having a good time when they're making their movies.
And doesn't it just give you a little bit more enthusiasm for the movie itself? When you see them having fun, you kind of vicariously kind of start to feel a bigger sentiment. Here's a question for you, Rob, a little bit disconnected, but more as we're getting closer, we've seen the Morbius trailer. And what we have been talking about, for totally understandable reasons, is the obvious connections between Morbius, or possible connections between Morbius and Spider-Man. As we get closer now that we've seen this Morbius trailer, what do you think of the chances we're going to see a connection in Venom 2 to Morbius, and why?
Oh, I think for sure we're going to see a connection. I think that they're kind of, look, they're building their universe. They know what they're doing. And I think that Morbius trailer really got me excited. Jared Leto put, pictures of his makeup up, and it was the same kind of thing. I mean, he's clearly probably having a really good time too, because what rock star doesn't want to play a vampire? They all want to be Lestat. and I think that I think it's great, and I think there absolutely is going to be some kind of connection. I mean, think about it. He's a doctor experimenting with super science to cure diseases. Venom is kind of a weird alien symbiote that has whatever properties. Maybe I would assume there'd have to be some kind of crossover, if not a mention. I mean, but I think doesn't Morbius take place in New York and this take place in San Francisco? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's,
who knows how far it can stretch.
Yeah, I see what you did there. But yeah, I think it's going to absolutely, because why wouldn't you? What if you're not going to have Venom and Carnage in a movie? You might as well have Venom, Carnage, and Morbius, the living vampire. I want to see that movie. And so, yes, I think there's going to be a connection. I don't know how, but I think there might be some connection.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that we're going to see Jared Leto. I'm not saying we won't. I don't know that we will, but I completely agree. I think we're going to, at least at minimum, hear some kind of connection between the two different projects. All right, question is, guys, what do you think about the images? Do you feel like we do? That's like, hey, it gives us enthusiasm seeing them have so much fun. Or do you feel like, you know what, big deal? People get to be on a movie set and they're having a good time. In other news, water wet. Like, how do you feel about that? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. Hey, listen, before we get into our main topics today, I want to share this. So on the John Campea Show, on Open Mic this weekend, I showed off the new T-shirts that came in, the new Bring On the Filthy T-shirts, the Sons of Filthy T-shirts is what came in. Do I have an image here to show you guys? I don't have an image to show you guys, but I've shown it on the show before. I said, look, I've got 5 T-shirts to give away. And I said, here's what I want you to do. Take a fun little picture of yourself and just make sure the words Bring On the Filthy are somewhere in the picture, and send me a picture. And I was hoping I'd get like 12 or 15 of them, and I'll pick like 5 at random, and I'm going to give away these shirts to 5 people at random. Well, we got nearly 200 people sent in these pictures. Nearly 200 people sent in these pictures, so I was overwhelmed. So I'm going to need to go through those, and I'm going to pick out 5 to send, and I'll notify you if you're one of the winners. But I at least wanted to grab a bunch of them and share them with you guys and just let you see just some of the photos that you guys have sent in as a part of this. So here, sit back, relax for a second, take a look at these. I got a big kick out of everybody's creativity, so check this out. All right, and thank you guys for saying that. I was overwhelmed by some of the creativity and one of
those are great.
Especially the dude who put his spelt out Bring On the Filthy with his DVD collection on the floor, the ones with dogs and his feet, and with the foreheads. I just got a big kick out of that, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So thank you to all of you who sent in those pictures, because seriously, you put a huge smile on my face looking through them. And again, I'll notify the 5 people who are going to be getting the Sons of Filthy t-shirts there. So thank you again, guys, for participating in that. Okay. With all that down and out of the way, let's now move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. See, you guys come up with them by going anytime over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, fill out the form with your topic or question, hit submit, it's completely free, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question as one of the main featured topics here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Will Armadin, who writes, Greetings, everyone. Just let me say I loved Sonic. I thought it was refreshingly fun and it filled me with joy. Well, that's always great when a movie can fill you with joy. It was good to see it at number 1 again this weekend, but it came in a lot lower than I expected it. I know you said you expected it to make maybe up to 35 million, but it only came in at 26. Despite everyone saying how successful it would be, it still hasn't even broken even. Were we too quick to pronounce the movie a hit? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, Sonic came in at number 1 again at the box office this weekend. But listen, it was real damn close. I thought Sonic would beat out Call of the Wild by a mile. But it beat it out, I think less than $2 million it beat it out by. So Call of the Wild made more money than I thought. And I really thought that Sonic would come in at under a 50% drop because even though it made a bunch of money first weekend, it's not like it made $100 million. So there were still lots of people left to go see this movie. You know what I mean? There was still lots of potential audience there to go out and see Sonic. So that's one reason I was kind of expecting it to take maybe less than a 50% drop. The other reason, and maybe even more important, was the fact that it had absolutely no competition opening up against it. This weekend, the only thing that was opening against it was this terrible looking dog movie with a CGI dog that was not expected to do that well and is ultimately going to cost them a lot of money, but The Call of the Wild. So I thought that Sonic can make somewhere in the $35 million range. It didn't. So how good or how bad is that? Well, let's take a look here at the weekend box office number. Sonic the Hedgehog, again, came in number 1 again at $26.3 million. Call of the Wild made more than expected, but it's still going to be a complete flop at $24.8 million. Harley Quinn Birds of Prey took a significant dip, only making another $7 million. Brahms the Boy 2 made $5.9 million more than I thought it was going to make. And Bad Boys for Life still hanging in there, guys. Bad Boys for Life still hanging in there, making another $5.8 million. Now, this is interesting because at this point, I think the point you were bringing up in your email is interesting. We all, including myself, kind of pronounced it a bigger than expected hit. The reality is now, even after 2 full weekends, the movie is still not broken even. Because when you take into consideration probably a $60 to $75 million production budget, then the theaters take, you're probably looking at a movie that needs to make somewhere around $270 maybe to break even. And it still hasn't broken even. Were we too quick to call Sonic a big hit? Well, it kind of depends. First of all, I think Sonic is going to continue to move. I think, look, this is a movie that is targeted at 2 different groups of people. It's targeted at children and it's targeted at hardcore Sonic fans. And I believe if you're in either one of those categories, this is a very, very, very enjoyable movie. And because it's that enjoyable, I do believe, even though it took more than a 50% drop this weekend, I believe it's still going to have legs. Even when stiffer competition comes out, I believe this movie's going to have better legs. Now, I didn't love this movie. I don't think it's all that good, but it was a lot better than I thought it would be. And I also don't think it's all that bad. And I'm not even in one of those 2 categories. I'm not a huge pre-existing Sonic fan, and I'm not a child in some ways. But I think the fact of the matter is it really did target those groups well, and I think it's going to have more legs, and I think it'll get to that mark. The other thing I think you have to keep in mind with the Sonic movie is that it is a video game adaptation, which do not traditionally do very well. And for it to come out with the opening that it had, and yes, even though it's a bigger drop than I thought it would be, $26 million on its second weekend is still nothing to sniff at. That is still nothing to sniff at. Is Sonic ultimately, at the end of the day, going to be a big hit? No. But I do think at the end of the day, Sonic is going to be successful. And successful is important. Maybe it's not a big hit that's going to make the studio $100 million in profit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, maybe not. But you don't have to do that in order to be successful. And in an era and market right now, Rob, where there's a lot of movies not even getting close to being successful, Birds of Prey, anybody? In a world where a lot of high-profile movies aren't successful, I think you got to sit back, look at a Sonic and say, successful? We'll take it. we'll take it. Because I still believe that is something, that is an accomplishment for a game movie like this. I think that's still impressive. Big hit? No, it's not. That's clear. The math is telling us it's not a big hit, but it's successful, and that's a huge step up from a lot of other movies, including, Rob, specifically in the genre of video game adaptations. And I think it's a step in the right direction. Rob, you see these numbers. What are the things that stand out to you?
Well, first of all, I think Sonic is interesting because it's kind of a perfect storm in the sense that not only is it a video game adaptation, but it's a family film. You know, it's a kid-friendly movie, and it's fun. There's going to be kids, like we've just heard from our viewer, how much they loved Sonic. There's going to be kids that they weren't even born when Sonic was big. And they're going to go back. I already saw this girl I know is posting pictures of her kids, and one of them, who's I think like 8, has become a Sonic fanatic because they saw the movie. And I think that it's great to have films that the whole family can enjoy, that you get a star like Jim Carrey to come be in to sort of elevate it. And the studio did what they needed to do to appease the fan base, and they get success. I mean, this is the kind of thing, this is how it should happen. And while maybe it's not going to make $1 billion, John, it's still, like you pointed out so astutely, it's a win for everybody. It's a win for the studio that listen to fans. It's a win for audiences that get a good movie and people that really love this movie. How great is it for them? I don't see that there's any downside with this.
Yeah, again, I agree with the assessment that maybe people were a little bit too quick to jump the gun to call it's a big hit. Okay, maybe not, but that does not undermine what it is. And you laid it out perfectly, Rob. This is a win on so many different levels for them, and it lays good foundation for where it might go. And listen, I thought this movie looked like trash. I thought it looked like absolute trash. I thought it looked so bad. It looked so bad. But you know what? This is why we keep saying it, Rob. It's okay to have your expectations. It's totally cool to have high expectations, low expectations, whatever. But when it's time to watch the movie, you got to leave those expectations at the door, and you just might be pleasantly surprised. And I'll tell you what, Sonic, while not a great movie, is one that pleasantly surprised me. And I think that's key. So it's a win for a lot of people. Question is, guys, what do you think about this? Do you consider Sonic a big hit? Do you consider it successful? How big do you think it can go? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move into main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Trevor Green, who writes, "Hey, John, I'm really interested in HBO Max. I think a lot of us are, Trevor. But I read something a little weird. There is a report going around that HBO Max will actually be on YouTube TV as an add-on. I know regular HBO sort of does this model, but it kind of felt like HBO Max was going to be more of a standalone service like a Disney Plus. Are these reports true? And if so, are you surprised?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Trevor. And yes, as we are here now at the dawn of the streaming wars, one of the big players has yet to enter the arena, and that, of course, is going to be HBO Max, and they're going to be a major powerhouse player here. So you're right. There was a report going around that's saying that HBO Max is going to be on YouTube TV, and it is actually true. It's been confirmed from a lot of the main sources here. This comes to us from The Verge. As a part of a new deal, YouTube TV will also distribute Warner Media's HBO Max streaming service. By the way, they're also going to be just carrying regular HBO. You're going to be able to get regular HBO on YouTube TV as well. They will also distribute Warner Media's HBO Max streaming service when it launches in May. HBO Max will run for $15 a month, and it collects all of HBO's offerings as well as movies and TV shows from Warner Media, Turner, Warner Brothers TV, and Warner Brothers Pictures. The Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, and the majority of the DC Universe collection will all be available on HBO Max, alongside shows like Friends, The Big Bang Theory, and South Park, and so on. So, Rob, what we've seen for a long time is that, yeah, you could pick up things like Stars for an additional fee on, if you got Amazon Prime, you can pay an additional fee and get Stars added on. You can pay an additional fee on certain services and get HBO added on, and you can just get it as a part of that package. I don't think you actually save any money, but it just makes it a little bit more convenient. You've already got this service, blah, blah, blah. So on that level, I guess it shouldn't surprise us that HBO Max is going to follow the same thing, but I agree with the viewer. I kind of had it in my head that HBO Max was going to be a little bit of a horse of a different color. I got to admit, I felt like HBO Max was going to be more like a Disney Plus, that it was going to be more of a traditional standalone, not an add-on for other services or whatever. I thought it was going to be more of a traditional thing, but apparently they are going to tap this to give themselves as much of a reach as possible. Because maybe there are a bunch of people who are YouTube TV customers. By the way, I use YouTube TV. That's my home cable, is YouTube TV. That's what I use right now. And I think HBO's thinking right now is, you know what? Maybe there are people out there who wouldn't necessarily go out and subscribe to a new service. But if they're already YouTube TV customers, to click that box that says add on HBO Max, and they'll be able to get all of HBO Max's stuff, which includes all of HBO regular stuff, right inside the app they're already using. That might be an enticement. And I'm sure YouTube TV is going to take a bit of a cut. So I can totally see this from YouTube's point of view, why this makes sense for them. And I guess there's ways to look at that to make sense. But I got to say, Rob, I did expect it to be just purely standalone service, because I don't expect to see Disney Plus as an add-on service to, YouTube TV or Sling TV or anything like that anytime soon. Rob, were you expecting this? Does this surprise you? And what do you see as the potential positives or negatives for an HBO Max doing an arrangement like this?
Well, look, I think people have done their research and they know what they're doing. And I think, look, there's going to be people that are going to, these streaming services, we're in the early era of all these streaming services. I think you're going to see alliances. You're going to see people teaming up to get their streaming service across the widest possible, to get them the most exposure. And I think as things shake out, we'll see how our monthly fees go. But I think they want to get the widest amount of exposure with the most amount of eyeballs on their programming, and that's how they suck you in. And then after a year or two, I mean, that's why we get T-Mobile, you get Netflix, or with Verizon, you get Disney Plus. And all of this is like a loss leader. It's like getting people into Walmart with cheap products that they show right up front, and they get you in the store. And once you're in the store, then they got you. And I think that's what they're doing with these streaming services. They're going to fight tooth and nail for viewership at first, and then it's going to settle in when people are hooked. I mean, I have to say, I think HBO's their programming, every time I turn around, they're launching something new that I'm interested in watching. And I'm pretty excited about that. And I think ultimately, in order to get people to watch your streaming service, you've got to come up with great programming. And if they have to go to Facebook TV, or they have to go wherever they're going, I say more power to them if they're going to get more people to watch and we get more programming. But I think it's going to get tough as time goes on, John, as everybody jumps into this with Peacock, with HBO Max, with Disney Plus, Netflix. It's going to be a bloodbath for a while.
And more to come. And more to come. And we
Apple
are going to have to
TV.
start. Yeah, we're all going to have. By the way, Apple TV, I just finished watching For All Mankind. Oh my God, that show was great. I thought that show was great. I was really surprised that Ray was watching. When Ray would be over here working on stuff, he'd have it on. And so I started catching some of it. And before I knew it, I'm like catching up on it myself. Listen, we are getting into an era now where we as consumers are really going to have to start asking ourselves some questions about which do we actually subscribe to and which do we not, because it's going to get real expensive real fast. And We're now already at the point that we're starting to spend the kind of dollars that we used to on cable packages. And we're going to have to start making some decisions. And as more and more content providers come out, putting out quality content, it's going to make the decision even more difficult. Question is for you guys, what do you think about this move by YouTube TV and HBO Max? Are you more likely to try out HBO Max if it's already there and an option on an existing service that you already use, like a YouTube TV, even though it's still going to cost the same? Or does it make no difference to you? I'm curious to know what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Monica Yeagley, who writes, My respect for Kevin Feige never stops going up. The more we learn about him, I read the interview with Mark Ruffalo where Mark told the story of Kevin being ready to quit Marvel if they didn't let him expand the MCU to include female and black and other people as well as leads in their movies. What do you think of Feige's stand? All right, thanks a lot for sharing that, Monica. And if you don't know what Monica's talking about, Mark Ruffalo, who is never shy about sharing his thoughts and opinions and stories, even when he's not supposed to. And I love Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo was being interviewed, and he told this really interesting story. And this is just a part of it, but this is what Mark Ruffalo said. When we did the first Avengers, Kevin Feige told me, listen, I might not be here tomorrow. He was going to talk to Disney about the issue of why there were no female superhero movies. And he's like, Ike, that's Ike Perlmutter, who used to be Kevin Feige's boss. Ike does not believe that anyone will go to a female starring superhero movie. So if I am still here tomorrow, you'll know that I won that battle. I might not be here tomorrow. And Rob, this is a great story that kind of proves a point that I've been making for a while. As we start to see female-led superhero movies, there are some people that cry bloody murder that there's a pro-feminist agenda. Oh my God, they're making movies with women. I can't believe, like, they're just losing their minds and their brains are melting out of their ears and screaming agenda. And what I have been saying for a long time is there's no agenda here. What there is a movement to stop the agenda of keeping women out. There has been an agenda for a long time that women have no place being the lead in a female superhero movie. And Rob, when you look at this story, this proves it. You have a creative filmmaker like Kevin Feige charting out his MCU and saying, I'd like to do this and I'd like to do this. And a couple of the movies that he'd like to do happen to be female superhero movies, only to have the agenda be slammed in his face by an Ike Perlmutter and some other key people in power going, no, we don't want our comic book movies to have women in the leads. Keep them out. There's no place for them here. That's what filmmakers like Kevin Feige, who are trying to just have some creative freedom, just make some movies. A couple of them happen to be female movies that he wanted to make. To have this decades-old agenda slammed in his face saying, no, there's no place for that here. There is no place for that here. And I've been saying this forever, Rob, that seeing a Wonder Woman movie, seeing a Captain Marvel movie, seeing a Black Widow movie, this isn't some agenda to kill the role of male heroes in movies. This is simply, finally, starting to see the death of a pre-existing agenda to keep women out. What is interesting to me, some people are going to want to look at this, Rob. They're going to want to look at this and see this as Kevin Feige being a champion for women in these movies and stuff like that. I don't look at it that way. And maybe I should, but I don't. What I simply see this is a filmmaker saying, why are you putting these shackles on me about the stories I can and cannot tell simply based on your old guard gender bias thinking women can't do these things? So I don't see it as Kevin trying to be a champion for the female cause. I don't see that. What I simply see is a creative filmmaker saying, whoa. I have a creative vision that just happens to include mostly male-led superhero movies, but have the odd female superhero movie just because that's part of my creative vision. And you're slapping your decades-old prejudice and agenda, stopping my creative vision. And he believed in that so much that he told Ruffalo, I may not even be here tomorrow. So what happened? Old guard like Ike Perlmutter are falling away, and he's gone. Disney, Kevin Feige basically put Disney in a position that they had to reorganize their leadership structure so that Kevin Feige was no longer answering to Ike Perlmutter, and they moved him directly under the great Alan Horn, and Perlmutter got shoved aside. Now, Perlmutter has no say in any of the Marvel stuff at this point. So I think it's an interesting thing. And what happened? Wonder Woman makes in the $800 million range. Captain Marvel makes over $1 billion at the box office. Black Widow's going to do pretty well. Harley Quinn. Well, they're not all going to be big hits, and I never thought that. So there's the Harley Quinn one. But it's been proven they're not working, Rob. Wonder Woman didn't work because it's a female lead. Captain Marvel didn't work because it's a female lead. They just showed that they can work with female leads. And yes, there's going to be some additional interest in them because, hey, we've never had this before, at least not in this new age of comic book movies. So I don't know. I kind of see it just as a filmmaker taking a stand saying, listen, I've got a creative vision. Part of my creative vision just happens to be some of these great superheroes that happen to be women. Why are you trying to stop me, bro? What's the beef? What's the problem here? And we're just seeing the old guard swept away. Anyway, Rob, I was really impressed to see this and to read this myself. You read it. What do you make of it?
Well, I've been a champion of Kevin. Not that he needs me to be a champion for him, but I've been singing his praises since we started doing the beginning of Heroes together. Almost it'll be 5 years ago in April, John. 5 years ago in April, I was first on Heroes.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about Kevin Feige, and I was jokingly calling him the Lord and Savior of the comic book movie. But, what he's talking about is great storytelling. And the idea that somebody wants to limit what kind of story should be told with some kind of gender bias, it's such a strange thing to me because, look, I love like Luc Besson's La Femme Nikita. I didn't not go see it because it was about a female assassin in training or whatever. Anybody who likes science fiction, fantasy, horror, action, genre films, whatever, I don't think they really care if there's a black man in the lead or a woman in the lead or anybody in the lead, as long as they get a kick-ass movie. That's what people want. They want kick-ass movies. And sure, there are some people perhaps that might make decisions based on those kinds of things, but I don't think so. I have never in my life on this planet ever met a film fan, ever, anywhere, that told me they wouldn't go see a movie because it starred a person of color or a woman. I have never, ever heard that in my life. Anybody just wants to go see a kick-ass movie. And when the movies are great, it doesn't matter who the lead is. If the movie's great, that's part of it, obviously. People will go. And Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel were hugely satisfying films with female protagonists that I enjoyed both of them immensely. Boy, I can't wait to get that Captain Marvel Hot Toys figure. It's about to release. And I just don't understand why anybody would make these kinds of distinctions about, well, these movies aren't going to make money. What evidence do you have? What evidence do you have that a female fronted superhero film couldn't work? And I'm sure Kevin Feige was thinking that. He's like, brah, nobody thought the Marvel Cinematic Universe was even going to work until we made Iron Man, and no one thought Iron Man was going to work either. People remember before that movie came out, it was like, I wonder if this movie, Iron Man's like a second-tier character. Who's going to go? Robert Downey Jr.'s got problems. And it worked.
I was one of those guys. I admit it. I was one of those guys. I like this isn't going to work till I saw the first trailer. But but I was one of those guys too. Yeah.
And lo and behold, the movies work. And I just think that that's what matters most. And for Kevin Feige, I'm sure when he was sitting in there and Ike Perlmutter's telling him these things, he's just thinking to himself, what do you have? Show me one. What are you are basing this opinion on? No one's ever made the kind of movie I want to make. And he made it, and it made $1 billion. And then he made Black Panther. That made $1 billion too.
Yeah, it's funny to me because I would still hear people, Rob, say to me, well, you're looking at the success of Wonder Woman, or you're looking at this. Captain Marvel's a good example too. Like people would look at Captain Marvel and say, well, that only made $1 billion because it's Marvel. Any Marvel film would have made $1 billion. Really? No Thor film has made $1 billion. As popular as Thor Ragnarok was, it didn't make $1 billion. Spider-Man Homecoming didn't make $1 billion. Doctor Strange didn't make $1 billion. Neither of the Ant-Man movies made $1 billion. So don't give me this. Again,
Guardians of the Galaxy didn't make $1 billion.
Did not make $1 billion. And again, I think it goes back to this other thing. I don't believe for a second, make a comic book movie with a female lead. That's why a movie will be successful. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I just believe it can be successful. And this proves it. It proves that it can be. Birds of Prey proves that it won't always be. That proves that. So I just believe, like a lot of other movies, it means it can be big and successful. And Kevin Feige is one of the guys who recognized that early. And it's just, again, I don't think this is Kevin Feige going to be, I'm going to be the hero for a feminism cause. I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's just a case of, no, man, I'm a filmmaker that I've got a creative vision. And why are you going to put artificial roadblocks in the way of my creative vision? And I love that he did that. Anyway, guys, what do you think about all this? What do you think about Kevin Feige? What do you think about the story that Mark Ruffalo told? Jump on down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's move on to main topic number 4. This one breaks my heart. And the fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Abdi M, who writes, "Hello, John. Did you see that the Hollywood Reporter just announced that a new Star Wars movie is in development with J.D. Dillard attached to direct and the Luke Cage writer as well? They don't know if it'll be a theatrical movie or Disney Plus one. Just wanted to know how excited this makes you and if you think it'll be on the big screen or on Disney Plus." All right. Thanks a lot for sending in that question, Abdi. And yes, for those of you who may not have heard, the report has come out. This isn't from some fly-by-the-night useless YouTube channel or little blog. This is actually from the major trades, and that is this. There is a new Star Wars movie in development. This comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter that writes, "The Hollywood Reporter learned Friday that a new Star Wars project is in the works. J.D. Dillard, best known for writing and directing the sci-fi thriller Slight, and Matt Owens, a writer on Marvel shows like Luke Cage and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., has been tapped to develop it. But insiders say it is undecided whether the project will be for the big screen or for the highly prioritized streaming platform of Disney Plus. Plot details, character details, and setting details are unknown." So that, of course, Rob, comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. And here's the interesting thing. Almost any other day of my life, Rob, where you come to me and say, "New Star Wars movie in development," up to 6 months ago, a year ago, I'd lose my mind. I'd lose my mind. Maybe not even all that long ago. I would lose my mind. Not too long ago, they announced Kevin Feige wants to develop a Star Wars movie. Ah! That was me. Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. That was basically me. Fast forward not too much later, and Rob, I never thought a day would come when I would say this, but I don't care. I don't care. And for some people right now, maybe saying, understandably so, "Well, John, up until The Rise of Skywalker," which I didn't like, and that's fine. Up until The Rise of Skywalker, you've liked, even loved a couple of the new Disney era Star Wars movies. That's true. I have. Well, why don't you care now? Fair question. I'll tell you why I don't care now. Because right now, Lucasfilm is in an era where we have somebody at the top who is one of the greatest producers in Hollywood history, in Kathleen Kennedy, who has proven over and over and over again that she is incapable of getting a project shit together before information becomes public. They announced this, doesn't happen. They announced that, it doesn't happen. This dude's directing this, and then he's gone. This guy's writing that, and then he's gone. We're doing this, project's coming out in a few months. Sorry, it's been delayed indefinitely. Oh, we've got this coming on this time frame. Oh, it's gone, or it's just indefinite, blah. We've got the Game of Thrones guys doing that. Oh, that's not there anymore. They still continue to pretend like Rian Johnson's going to do more movies. We all know he's not. And some, you may think that's a good or a bad thing, but regardless, they continue to say he's doing it, but we all know he's not. I simply don't care anymore. And I'm at a point, Rob, that I never thought I would be at as a Star Wars fan. And remember, I'm not talking about the quality of the films here. Because for the most part, I've quite enjoyed the Star Wars films that Disney has given us, with the exception of The Rise of Skywalker, which I didn't like. And again, that's okay. That's fine. I didn't like one. That's fine. But the circus, the Keystone Cops, Benny Hill music playing cats chasing their own tails sideshow that Lucasfilm has become, this disorganized, lack of direction mess that it has been behind the scenes. By the way, again, let me reemphasize so I'm not misunderstood here. I have a huge amount of respect for Kathleen Kennedy. She is one of the greatest of all time. One of the greatest of all time as a producer in Hollywood. Absolutely. Steven Spielberg says so. I'll take his word for it. But it's become such a sideshow now, Rob, that I just realized that after the Obi-Wan thing, I didn't even realize it at the time, but somewhere in the back of my head, a disconnect happened. Where I'm still excited. If there was Rob, if there was a Star Wars movie coming out tomorrow, opening in theaters, oh my God, I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. I'd be drooling. I'd be excited. I would still be there as a fan. I'm still like, I would be nutty about it. But news of a Star Wars project now of any kind, I don't care. Because I don't believe you anymore. Or worse, I believe you're telling us the truth. I just don't believe in your competency as an organization right now to actually follow it through with what I'm being presented right now. And I'm not saying that's fair for me to feel that way. I'm not saying it's fair for me to feel that way. But it is how I feel. And I've been brought to this place of feeling this way because of this insane track record of mismanagement this whole time. Again, I'm not saying that I haven't enjoyed the films. Clearly I have up until the last one. But eventually, Rob, when you've got a hockey team that is just rotting from the inside, you may be putting up a lot of wins right now, but it will catch up to you. Mismanagement, lack of proper team culture, lack of all the right things being done behind the scenes will eventually catch up to you. And in my opinion, it is caught up. Rob, I want to be thrilled right now. I want to see news breaking on the Hollywood Reporter of a brand new Star Wars movie with a fresh new director, and and I want to be excited, and I want to be thrilled, and I want to be jumping up and down about it. But I realized after that Making Star Wars story about the new Star Wars movie being held in the High Republic era and stuff like that, I realized after we did that story, I was still like, I'm not as thrilled for this as I would have been normally. And then I realized, oh yeah, because I just don't believe it anymore. And then I see this and it's caught up. It's caught up. And that's where we're at right now. And I don't like feeling this way. I don't like being this way. And for the record, this may actually happen. This movie might happen and it might be great. And if it does, I'll celebrate it with everybody. I'm just saying I can't be excited right now because I no longer believe it. Anyway, Rob, a couple things for you to dissect here. Number one, what do you think about the news in and of itself? And number two, what do you think about fair or unfair, the type of position that a Star Wars fan like myself find myself in right now?
Well, I too am a lifelong, well, since I was 10, a lifelong Star Wars fan. And I read this news and I, like you, I don't even like the idea behind this movie. Like the one thing that I was so disappointed in terms of Rise of Skywalker was the whole concept of Exegol and this fleet of hundreds of Star Destroyers with Death Star weapons on them. None of it rang true to me. I didn't believe any of it. And the Sith rock band, the audience that's in the Sith temple and all these people, none of it made any sense to me. None of it, I could not suspend my disbelief. So hearing that they're going to make a movie about Exegol, I'm like, why?
But they're not. That was, by the way, that was never part. That was an addition that a rumor made up that wasn't part of the official report. And right now, the official word is that there are no details about what it would be. That whole thing about this new movie is going to be about Exegol, actually not substantiated.
Because that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I agree. I agree.
But second of all, the fact that I don't even know if it's been, so they report this. It's like, yeah, I'm sure they've got 100 different movies they'd like to make. What I want them to do is bring back authorship. When I watched The Mandalorian, and The Mandalorian wasn't perfect, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. But what I liked about it the most was I felt like I was seeing a real vision from filmmakers who had thought about what they were doing. They went out to make what they wanted to make, and they executed it. And I felt authorship behind it. I didn't feel like it was thrown together. I didn't feel like it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And what I want from a Star Wars movie is to feel satisfied. That I've watched something that was planned and it was understood by the filmmakers and the producers and the studio, and everybody was on the same page, and they went out and they made something and they executed on that. And I feel that whether you love the Marvel Cinematic Universe or not, I always feel satisfied when I see a Marvel movie. I've liked some more than I've liked others, but I feel ultimately satisfied because I'm getting a vision. I'm getting Kevin Feige's overall vision, and he's working with these filmmakers. And I feel that, and when I put them all together, I enjoy those movies. They make me feel good. They entertain the heck out of me. And Star Wars has not been entertaining me. It's been so hit and miss. Like, I love Rogue One. I didn't like J.J. Abrams' movies. I know you like Force Awakens, but Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker to me are both a mess. And at least Last Jedi was to me, you might not have liked it, but it was interesting. I was interested in Last Jedi because I felt it had authorship behind it. You might not have agreed with it all, but I did feel I was watching a filmmaker tell his story that he wanted to tell. And and then Solo, of course, was a mixed bag, even though I enjoyed it. But I just want Star Wars to resonate with me again. And perhaps I'm asking too much as a middle-aged man who loved Star Wars as a kid, but I don't think I loved Star Wars because I was a child. I think I loved Star Wars because it was a timeless classic that was really well done. And it really took me and transported me to a world and gave me great characters, and it became indelible, and it obviously touched the whole world. And everybody wants great Star Wars, and we're not getting it. And it's frustrating.
Well, I mean, again, for me, there is stuff that in this new era Star Wars that I have loved. I love Rogue One. I love The Force Awakens. I really enjoyed Solo quite a bit. You know, and again, like I mentioned earlier before, if this movie they're talking about was coming out tomorrow and it was done, it was a real thing, I'd be excited. I would be excited. But with this track record, and I've been saying this for years, Rob, now. I've been going on this for years. The main problem with Kathleen Kennedy, to me, has been, and I've started saying this 2 years ago, her inability to do the number one job she has. Vet and make sure she is 100% on the same page with the filmmakers she's bringing in to start developing these movies. Because we've seen time after time after time after time, The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker being the most recent situation where it all fell apart. We were supposed to get the Duel of the Fates. Instead, it turned into something else because of mismanagement and blah, blah, blah. And we ended up where we are. And it's not that I'm not excited for a new Star Wars movie. It's that I'm not excited about news of a new Star Wars movie because I just have no faith that they can actually carry it through anymore. And sometimes it does, and that's great. But the percentage, her batting percentage is so low. Her batting percentage is so low on this. It's crazy, and it's just left me to a point. Again, I enjoy a lot of these movies. I do, but the mismanagement is caught up, Rob. The mismanagement is caught up. I don't know, guys. How do you feel about it? Are you thinking, Campea, you're just being jaded at this point? Maybe I am, and maybe it's unfair for me to feel so. Or maybe you feel the same way I do. I don't know. Maybe you guys are feeling more excited about this news than I am. Maybe I'll become excited about this news once it actually starts to look like it's going to be real, which I have no faith in at this point. How are you feeling about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all that down and out of the way now, we're going to move on and take your live questions. And there's a couple of different ways to send in live questions. The best way is to use the tip link in the top line of the description of this video. It's simply at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip, but you can see the link right down there. And by the way, you can use that link anytime 24/7. So even if it's in between shows, you can send in a question using that link, and it'll be one of the first questions that get answered on the next day. Or you can also use the super chat feature here on YouTube as well. But before we get to that, as we do every day, Rob and I are now going to take a quick little break here, rest up the vocal cords, stretch our legs, go refill our drinks, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom yourselves. So if you guys will just indulge us for a couple of minutes, Rob and I will be right back with your live questions. See you in just a couple of minutes. back. Thank you so much, everybody, for your patience and indulgence as we took a little bit of a break there. And now let's dive in and start taking your live questions. And we're going to get things started off here with Jeffrey Hemphill, who writes, bring back movie serials. Have, say, The Blue Devil with Ian Ziering and Phantom Stranger with Macomb Blair from Swamp Thing. Screen 10 monthly serials, 20 minutes long in theaters as a part of a movie package or separate. Do this before streaming Blu-ray releases. I hear ya, but I just don't think that is something that would fly today with today's movie-going audience. I just don't know if it will work. Rob, a lot of people don't realize there was an era in movies when you would go and you would pay a nickel and you go into the movie theater and you could be there all day. And they would run movies, but also these serials and the little things in between, and then maybe another movie. You just go, and that was a real part of that for a long time. But anyway, Rob, do you think something like that could stand and still exist in the movie kind of culture today? Do you think they could do those and bring those back?
You know what? I would love it. Some of my favorite serials were even superhero serials, like The Adventures of Captain Marvel, which still really holds up. But here's the thing, we had a movie-going culture that would expect that. People would go back to the movies every week, and you'd get a new chapter of the serial, like on a weekly basis. You'd have to train an audience to expect that. But, there are companies like Quibi is basically going to be doing that. They're making 7-minute chunks of programming. Those are essentially serialized programming. So I don't know if it's ever going to, I like the idea. I don't know if it's ever going to come back to movie theaters, but I like the idea of having, like, if they're going to have the Marvel Cinematic Universe and they're making episodes, it would be kind of fun to watch a smaller serialized form. But then again, then you ask yourself, well, if you're only going to make 7-minute chunks, why don't you make 30-minute chunks? I think The Mandalorian was kind of like a serial. They were these shorter bites. They weren't hour-long shows, and I really liked that. When I was watching it, I knew it was going to be shorter, and once I settled into I thought that was great. Maybe I'd love to see maybe double feature shows where you might get something that might not have as much story, like they could tell an hour-long story in small chunks, and then you'd show it before the hour-long episodic show. So you get a short subject and the serial portion, then you get an episode of television. But all television now is kind of episodic. One episode leads into the next. So I don't know, but I loved old serials when I was growing up. So bringing it back is something I would love to see, but I just don't know how to do it.
All right, that's an excellent answer, Rob. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, listen, and Jeffrey, by the way, thank you for tipping like $50. And by the way, guys, so for those of you who don't know, when somebody does tip like that much, not only do we answer the question here, but we also make a standalone video for it as well. We got a few more of those coming up today. So keep your eyes open over the next week or two, Jeffrey. You're going to see your question here also put up in its own standalone video form as well. So thank you for sharing that. All right, the karate adult, I like that. Writes, the only question I hope Coming to America 2 answers is if Louis Anderson's character got promoted to assistant manager at McDowell's. I hope his positivity for washing lettuce paid off. First of all, Karate Adult, that brings up a great question that I simply don't know the answer to. Rob, with everybody else I've heard coming back from the original, I don't recall hearing about Louis Anderson. Am I just forgetting, or have you heard about him coming back at all?
I haven't heard that, but you know what? Something tells me that they might bring him back. I could see that, but I haven't heard it.
Oh, God, I would love that. Okay. Black Bono writes, hey, John, hope you are well. I am doing well, thank you. As I'm watching the open mic, February 22nd, 2020, on the topic of Netflix movies, I did notice that original TV series on Netflix are much than their movies. You probably meant are much better than their movies. What do you think Netflix should do to improve on that area? That's a great question, and I'm not really sure. But that has been the $1 million question about why. And look, not every series that Netflix does is gold, but certainly a much higher percentage of their series turn out to be really good as opposed to their original movies. Because, we talked the other day, for every The Irishman, there's 10 others that are just complete crap. And so why is it that they're able to put together better stuff with their series than they are with their movies. My only theory right now is that they seem to have a philosophy on the movie side of quantity. Just put out tons of movies. And and by the way, I don't know that that's true, what I'm saying. I don't know that that's true. I'm just saying it feels like that. But that is the $1 million question, Black Bono. Is like, why that much of a discrepancy? It is kind of weird to see. Okay, let's see. 50 Shades of Geek writes, I like the bat suit. It looks like Batman to me. That's all I need. I'm sure Batman is going to have a cape. It's just going to be added with CGI. Rob, that's a theory that I had a little bit earlier, that because in Man of Steel, we saw them specifically do that in Man of Steel. No physical cape, and they CGI'd it so they can make it do all the dramatic. And I thought it worked well. Do you think they might be doing the same thing for Batman at this point?
I think the costume that we've seen is early. I think it's the same way we saw Batman develop his suit in Batman Begins, in Nolan's Batman Begins. This harks back to various runs on the comic book itself. I think this is him first, before his bat persona is totally solidified. But yeah, they'll use CGI capes, but this is more like, this looked like he went to a surplus store and threw this together with equipment, army military equipment. I don't see this as the final iteration of his bat suit. I think this is an evolution, and I don't know if there's ever going to be a cape for this part of the bat suit. I think perhaps not. This is more of a paramilitary version, and it'll develop over the course of the film.
All right, next up, 50 Shades of writes, in many Batman games, Batman uses different suits for different situations, and some of them don't have capes for practical reasons. Maybe that's why he doesn't have a cape in the set picture. I don't know. I think again, games are different from movies. I really do think they're going to have the cape in there. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just saying as a fan, I speculate they will want to have that iconic image of Batman with the cape flowing in the background. So I think they will. I just think it'll be CGI'd later. 50 also writes, the line, greed is good. Greed works. Came up the great line from Michael Douglas in Wall Street. Came up as a question in a recent Schmodown match featuring two of your favorite players, the Real Rejects. Thanks to you, I knew the answer. Thank you, John. They won. In case you were wondering, that's good because I know they don't. I know the guys don't have the best win-loss record. I know the Real Rejects don't have the best win-loss record. But yes, that is one of the greatest lines and moments ever in cinematic history. Greed is good. Greed works. By Michael. Won him an Academy Award, by the way, saying that line. Gordon Gekko won him an Academy Award, so there it is. Okay, let's move on here. 50 Shades also writes, John, tell me, do you want to go? Where it's covered in all the colored lights, where the runaways are, this is from Greatest Showman. The impossible comes true, taking over you. This is the greatest show. Tell me, do you want to go? Guys, by the way, if you've not watched Greatest Showman, what are you waiting for? Watch The Greatest Showman. It is awesome. Willow writes, do you still think that Andy Serkis should have been considered for Best Actor for the motion capture he did for Caesar? I think it might be the same issue as stunts, where it's hard to tell which part was actually the actor's work. See, there was a point that I was more interested in him as supporting actor. I thought that the performance of Caesar was fabulous. And part of the reason why those early Apes movies work so well. And I thought there was an argument to be made that Serkis should have been considered for Best Supporting Actor. Yes, it was an unconventional performance that he gave because it's also added with it was done with motion capture and added with the CGI character. And there are other people also involved with the artists and stuff like that. But I still thought it was so good and such a great performance that some consideration should have been given to it. I don't think you're far off, Willow, by saying that, it's hard for the Oscar voters to really determine how much of it was Andy Serkis's performance and how much of it was the post-production CGI artists. How much of it was them and how much of it was Andy Serkis. And you're right, they don't have an idea. And that does make it a difficult thing to do. That makes it a difficult proposition for them to cover. Rob, I remember Schnepp and I used to have this debate all the time. Because Schnepp was saying, it's all the post-visual effects people. I'm like, I don't know, man. I were some post-visual. A lot of that, most of that, I think, was Andy Serkis's performance. When you'd actually see them play side by side, Serkis on set performing it and the final product, I mean, it was Serkis's performance, but it does raise a lot of questions. Admittedly, it does. Rob, do you think we might be anywhere near a time or a place when a motion capture performance will actually get any real consideration for an Academy Award in acting?
Well, when I was working on the Lord of the Rings, specifically the Two Towers, the special features for the extended edition, I did all the interviews with all the people that were in charge of doing Gollum, and there's a lot of people. There's a lot of different disciplines. They even had to come up with something they called subsurface scattering, which was our skin is not opaque, it's translucent. And they had to figure out, how do we make skin look real? So there's computer technicians, there's animators, like Randy. I forget his last name right now, but there's so many people that worked on Gollum, and yes, the performance was the basis of it all. But there's many different disciplines that are required to make those creatures look photoreal. So I would have to say I couldn't in good conscience give it just to a performer. Certainly the performance is the basis of it all, but man, is there a lot of people that it's required to then. So I'm conflicted by it, but I wouldn't give it. You can't give it to one person. It's an acting performance. It's
going to be interesting to see how it evolves. It's going to be interesting to see how it evolves over time. You're right. It is the conundrum they face right now. All right. 50 Shades also writes, traditionally, Lego likes to have 3 or 4 major characters in one of their bigger sets and 1 or 2 major characters in a smaller set to get people to buy the smaller sets just to complete their minifigure collection. I wouldn't be surprised if we'll see Queel in a Lego set later in the year, hopefully a set of his ranch with some blurgs. That could be pretty cool. I have spoken. So what that's in reference to, Rob, is we talked the other day about there's a Lego set now coming out of the Mandalorian ship, and it includes a number of the key characters. Very suspect by their absence, though, was Queel, was not as part of the set. And I speculated, I bet you they're going to make him part of another set just so you can have that. But apparently a lot of people are saying that is actually their standard operating procedure. I don't buy a lot of Legos these days. Have you known that to be part of their operating procedures, like to withhold certain characters for other things?
Yeah, because they might want to do like a landscape thing where you get an outside where it comes with the creatures. But they do that. So yes, I would say yes. The answer to the question is yes. I would imagine. We're talking about a popular character. They'll add him in somewhere.
All right. 50 Shades of Grey. Also on that note, R.I.P. Jens Nygaard Newsden, the creator of the Lego minifigure. I know it's not movie related, but I just wanted to bring it up. I did not hear about that. So, I mean, considering how beloved Lego is and how much Lego has kind of invaded the movie space too, that is interesting news. Thanks for bringing that up, man. I appreciate that. Kosher Face writes, when does the review embargo lift for The Invisible Man? I'm not sure. I'm going to go see The Invisible Man tomorrow night. Actually, I'm going to go see it tomorrow night. I don't accept a lot of press invitations anymore, but ever since the first trailer for Invisible Man came out, I've been fascinated. And you know what? I don't recall the invitation saying there was a review embargo, so it may actually lift tomorrow. So I'm not 100% sure, but I will let you guys know just as soon as I can. All right, BC33 writes, DCEU rankings: number 1, Man of Steel; number 2, Shazam; number 3, Aquaman; number 4, Birds of Prey; number 5, Wonder Woman; number 6, Batman vs. Superman; number 7, 50 Feet of Crap; number 8, Justice League; number 9, Suicide Squad. I wish I could say I was joking at the end there, but sadly I cannot. I think I am almost in perfect alignment with your top 3. I also believe Man of Steel number 1. I also believe Shazam number 2. I would put Wonder Woman in number 3 and Aquaman at number 4. That would be my thing. How would your list look a little different? What would your top 5 look like there, Rob? Or at least top 3.
Is there top 5? You know, I mean, you know, Man of Steel is at my top. Wonder Woman. You know what? Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman.
All right. I love Shazam. I know you didn't like Shazam as much as me, which is okay. That's okay.
I know.
All
I
right.
gotta tell you, I love Aquaman. The more I watch it, the more I love it.
Well, I remember you and I went together to go see
Yeah.
that early press screening of Aquaman, and we both walked out going, "All right," but you, in particular, you really liked it.
It's so goofy. I can't believe it even exists. Every time I watch it, I'm like, God bless James Wan.
All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Sarcastic Satire, who writes, "Good day. If you could greenlight a sequel to only one of these films, which one would you pick? Mystery Men, Master and Commander, Dread, John Carter, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., or the... Oh, shit!
Ooh, wow, that's a tough... Oh,
that's
man.
That's a killer row right there.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay. I'll tell you which one I'm going to pick. But it's not necessarily because I think that the original was better than the other originals listed on the list, but rather because I really believe in its sequel's potential and its franchisability. Because I would love to see a sequel to Mystery Men, Master and Commander, Dread, John Carter, Man from U.N.C.L.E., and Nice Guys. I would love to see a sequel to all of them, but I'm going to pick this one because I believe the sequel is poised for success and has real franchisability, and I'm going to say The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I watched that first one, Rob, and I had a joyous experience watching the first one. I thought the first movie was a hell of a good movie and a lot of fun, but more importantly to this question, I wanted to see these two guys together more on screen. I wanted to see Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer and what's the other guy in it? He was just in The Gentleman. He was the guy. Hugh Grant. Thank you. And I wanted to see these three guys together. Their chemistry was fantastic. And it's just the franchisability of that. It made so little money. That is a movie that should have made bank. And I believe the potential for it as a franchise is really high. So I'm going to say Man from U.N.C.L.E. Rob, out of that killer list, there's no wrong answer here. But which one, if you could greenlight a sequel tomorrow, which one would you go for?
Well, because I think it was one of the most maligned movies, and I think it was killed. I think it was killed before its time, and it has such great source material to draw upon for sequels. I'm going to go with John Carter. I love John Carter, the Barsoom novels, the Edgar Rice Burroughs Barsoom novels, Barsoom's Mars, of course. I wanted more of those. I so wanted more of those.
Oh God, yeah, John Carter was so great. I went to Phoenix. I literally traveled to Phoenix, Arizona, to watch a advanced early screening of it. And I was floored by how much fun I had with that movie. And I remember coming out of the screening because the studio flew us out to Phoenix to watch it because they wanted to do the press junket in the Mars environment. So they put us up in this resort in the middle of the desert, right? So it looked like Mars, right?
Right.
And they finally took us to see the movie. And I remember coming out and I said to one of the other journalists who was there, I remember saying, this is after seeing the movie, because I didn't know this until I saw the movie. But as soon as I saw the movie, I came out and said, this is one of the worst marketing campaigns in the history of cinema. Because I'd seen all the trailers. And then once I saw the movie, I went, oh yeah, this marketing campaign is terrible. This is a terrible marketing campaign for this great, fun, enjoyable, whimsical, imagination-filled sci-fi adventure film. It was just, still one of the worst ever. Still one of the worst marketing campaigns for a film ever. It's really too bad because this could have been a franchise. Could have been a franchise. I agree with you on that, Rob. All right. Josh Bing writes, hey, John. On Sunday, I was backstage manager in my hometown for the Beaufort International Film Festival. Oh, very cool. Oscar winner Eugene Gertley was there. He won an award, and I got to take a pic with him and his trophy from the festival. One of the best days ever. Listen, I'm glad you brought that up, John. First of all, that sounds like a great experience you had. There are a lot of film festivals. And yes, most of the film festivals out there are not going to be playing the big Hollywood films. But listen when I tell you, film festivals can be a hell of a lot of fun. Some aren't. I've been to the odd film. This is not a lot of fun. But like For instance, Rob, I don't know if you've ever been to the San Diego Film Festival, the San Diego International Film Festival. One of the best party film festivals ever, because it feels like every movie that plays has some after party and reception, and the whole town kind of embraces it. It becomes a lot of fun. Yeah. So I'm telling you, it's a lot of fun going to film festivals, and they're all over the place. So I really want to encourage, take Josh's lead here. If you guys get the opportunity to go to a film festival near you, just go for the fun of it. Because you're going to see movies you're never going to see playing in the multiplexes near you. You're going to see talent that you've never heard of before that maybe later will become somebody you can say, I remember when I saw him in this little movie 3 years ago and nobody knew him at the time. They can be a lot of fun, so do go check them out. And I'm glad you had that experience, Josh. All right. Unwise Woe, I like the name, writes, Yo, John, loving Regal Unlimited. It's a great plan. Seen 1917 and Birds of Prey. 1917 was so good. Birds of Prey was meh. Good action, but didn't like certain characters' development. Such a waste. Also, seen Jojo Rabbit. You were right, brother. Didn't expect the shoe scene. And listen, I'm glad you brought that whole thing up, Unwise, about the Regal plan. You know, you got the AMC A-list, which I still think is probably the best plan out there. Regal is also a fabulous plan. Everybody else has them, but Alamo Drafthouse, Rob, they just made their movie subscription plan has been in beta, but it's now out of beta. It's now available to everybody. And I already know a few people in the LA area who've gotten their memberships for the LA one. They are, of course, not a huge chain, but they are scattered throughout the country. If you live near them, you might want to check that out. I know you're probably going to get yourself a membership to that one. I'm guessing because no. I'm thinking of somebody else who really loves the Alamo Drafthouse. But have you gone to the one in LA?
I haven't, and I really want to go because I can take the train there, and I really want to. Yeah. The question is, yes, I want one, even though I've never been.
It's a nice experience. I have some issues with Alamo Drafthouse in general, but it is a really good, I gotta say, man, it's a really good movie experience. And if you live near one, I would highly encourage you to check it out at some point. All right. David B writes, Hey, John, you mentioned being excited Titans was filmed in your hometown. It's true. I'm from SoCal, but live in Plano, Illinois, which was downtown Smallville in Man of Steel. Really? There's a flag planted on a building saying Smallville at the bottom. It can be seen in the movie. That's awesome. Yeah, so we were talking the other day about, listen, even living in LA, when I first moved to LA, Rob, I lived in this apartment right on Sunset Boulevard, right in Hollywood, right on Sunset Boulevard. And I would get a kick out of, because I would always see LA, but I remember Entourage. The opening scene of Entourage, as they're driving down driving down Sunset Boulevard, you have the arc light was there with the Cinema Dome was always in the opening credits. And the other thing in the opening credits was literally across the street from my place, which was, there's a big strip club on Sunset Boulevard, and it was a part of the opening credits of Entourage. And I remember getting a kick out of every time I would watch Entourage and the opening credits would play, and I go, oh, just look out my window. There it is. There's this place. and so, but we still get this when we see like our hometown in it. That's why when I first started watching Titans and I recognized, holy crap, that's Hamilton. That's my hometown. Like, it's still an exciting thing. Rob, do you still get that feeling when you see things like happening in Seattle or things like that? Do you still get that feeling?
Oh, dude, I do. And I had it recently. I got to tell you, I was watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in 70 millimeter on opening night in the Cinerama Dome Theater when the Cinerama Dome Theater popped up in the movie. And I mean, that was my favorite experience. And the whole audience, went bananas. But it was such a weird thing. It was such a weird, and being from Seattle, whenever I go back and I watch Singles, I love Singles. I mean, you have to love Singles because it's the Seattle that I left. And I whenever I see places that I've actually been to, I've been to Vasquez Rocks so many times. Hell, I made a movie in Vasquez Rocks. But whenever I see Vasquez Rocks in a TV or movie, I'm like, oh my God, it never ceases to make me chuckle or make me happy. But yeah, the beginning of the movie, the parallax view from the early 70s takes place on top of the Space Needle in Seattle, and a dude gets killed. I love that. It's the best.
All right, let's move on here. Jay Bling writes, I've come to realizing when it comes to naming characters, you can do little wrong using last names that are also first names. So, instead of Tyler Rake, perhaps he should have been named Tyler Drake. I can't stop laughing at Tyler Rake. So what Jay Bling is talking about here is the other day, Rob, you and I were talking about it's called Extraction, a new Netflix film coming out with Chris Hemsworth in the lead. And it's like the lead character's name in an action film is Tyler Rake. It's like, can you be more lazy in your writing? I mean, can it be worse than that? But you're right, Jay Bling. A good first name can be your last name in an action movie.
Right.
So where Tyler Paul could have also worked, I suppose, but Tyler, look, Rob, I know it's totally unfair. It's just a name, but is it bad that I'm now expecting the screenplay for this movie to be bad because they couldn't even come up with a better name than some dreck like Tyler Rake?
Tyler Rake. I just can't imagine. I mean, that's one step away from a porn name. I don't know, John. I'm still excited for the movie though.
I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot when it comes. I'm just not going to go into it with high expectations. Let's just say that. All right. Lightwings writes, did you hear that Marvel is planning on hiring Seth Rogen and giving him the Kumail Nanjiani ripped body experience source? Some guy on the John Campea Show. By the way, Rob, have you seen? First of all, I love Kumail Nanjiani. I do too. I liked him before The Big Sick. The Big Sick to me is one of the great, came out of nowhere little films. It's got huge laughs. It's got great heart. It's very personal. It's extremely entertaining. If you have not seen The Big Sick, God, you got to watch it. It's such a good movie. And I became a massive fan of his at that point. Have you seen the pictures of him and what he has done to himself physically for the Eternals?
Oh, dude, come on. He looks fantastic.
He has gone from this scrawny comedy kid to this ripped beast of a man.
Yeah.
In the span of a year.
Yeah.
In the span of a year.
But you know what? When I look at him, I'm just like, I just think about how much pain and hard work and dedication and the kind of food that he couldn't have eaten. I mean, how many beers could he have not drank? I mean, and I respect it. I respect it, man. But I look at that, I'm thinking, I want that. I would love to, as a middle-aged man, like if I could do that superhero workout regimen for like 6 months just to look like that for a while, I would. I think that'd be great.
You know, did you also see? He did one of the late night talk shows, and apparently they brought out like a pastry, and he said, "This is going to be the first pastry I've been allowed to eat in like 15 months." And he actually got to eat a pastry. And it's like, oh, God, I don't know. It's crazy. Which is, by the way, it's the main reason Hugh Jackman called it quits on playing Logan anymore.
Right.
He was just like, it's not that he wasn't still having fun playing Logan. It was just, I can't do this anymore. And as a matter of fact, Liam Neeson just did an interview where they asked him, hey, will you be in another Star Wars or a superhero movie again? And he's like, no. He goes, look, they're not really my thing, number one, but also at this point in my life, I don't want to spend 4 hours in the gym every day, which is what I would have to be even if I'm wearing a dress shirt. I mean, I can't do that anymore. And I think a lot of us underestimate how much these guys got to go through that, Rob.
Right. I mean, you get paid to do it. It's part of the job, but it's also unsustainable. What's really interesting is you go back and you look at buff dudes from like the 70s and even 80s, and they look good. You know, they look fit, but they're not jacked the way people are now. I mean, it's almost as if they're so jacked, they're so shredded, it looks like someone drew them. You know, I never really thought that anybody could actually look like a superhero who's drawn in a comic book, but now they all do. And we have this sort of, it's unsustainable. Like, who wants to live that life forever?
Forever. Yeah, it's a tough thing. Okay, next one up here. Nosferatu writes, name this movie. Okay, who brought the dog? I want to say Ghostbusters. Is that not Ghostbusters?
I don't know.
I could be way off on that.
Maybe it could be.
If you guys know it, jump down to the comment section below. It's a good one, Nosferatu, and let us know. All right. Nine and Tuza just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Nine. All right. Faye Haberfeld writes, recommendation, Once Were Warriors, a film about a woman who must protect her children from their physically abusive father. Fantastic. Also, I think the only female-led comic book film Marvel has put out so far was a total bag of crap. Well, hey, listen, every movie, there are people who think Thor Ragnarok is terrible. There are people who think Ant-Man is terrible. That's totally fine. It's still just a movie. That means some people are going to like it and some people aren't. So it's totally good. I don't think I've seen Once Were Warriors. Rob, have you?
Dude. It's so good. It's a New Zealand movie. It was directed by Lee Tamahori, who went on and actually directed a Bond film. But it's also about the Maori. It's a terrific movie, and I would recommend it. It's a little rough to watch. I won't lie. It's rough, but it's a really, really good movie.
All right. Let's see. Next one up comes to us from Big Dog, who writes, here are my suggestions for who should host the Oscars. In no particular order. Number 1, Anna Kendrick. I love Anna Kendrick. I don't know that I see her as a host for the Oscars, though. Number 2, John Mulaney. Totally different situation. I think John Mulaney would be a hell of a host for the Oscars. I normally want movie personalities hosting the biggest night in the movies. He said, but John Mulaney to the voice of Spider-Man into the Spider-Man. Yeah, I know, but he's not really a movie personality, but still, I'd be down for that. 3, both, if their comedic styles blend well. Also, not to sound like a douche, but it's pronounced divisive, not divisive. No, I stick with divisive. Thank you so much for that. But I love the idea of John Mulaney. I think there are a number of people that I think I would be totally down with hosting the Oscars, but I like the John Mulaney pick. Rob, do you got anybody off the first of all, what do you think of either Anna Kendrick or John Mulaney, or do you have anybody else off the top of your head that you'd like to see hosting the Oscars?
I have to say, I love Anna Kendrick, and whenever I see her on some talk show, she's just hilarious.
She's delightful
and spunky and funny and smart. So I think she could do it, but I like co-hosts. Maybe get them both.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work so well with Anne Hathaway and James Franco.
No, it did not. But you need to get people that are their material is suited to them.
Boy, I loved at this year's Oscars when Steve Martin and Chris Rock came out.
Oh my God, so good.
I thought they were great. I'd be down for that. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, 1 of 3. In 1940, RKO made a film adaptation of Swiss Family Robinson, which was very well regarded. And when Disney was making their version, Walt was paranoid it would be unfavorably compared. So he bought the rights so no one could ever see it again. It worked for decades, and we were recently starting to have few people left alive who'd ever seen it. But the joke ended up being on Disney, as they're still holding the rights, meant it was put on Disney Plus, and is even in the first search results. It's a bit preachy, but that's just staying true to the book, and it's worth a watch. A storm scene has amazing special effects for the time, and it even has the first time appearance of none other than Orson Welles a year before Citizen Kane. That's interesting. Well, I mean, the joke isn't on Disney. Pardon me, guys. The joke isn't on Disney. They put it on. I mean, it's not like we have Disney Plus. Oh, we have to put this on Disney Plus. We have no choice now. I mean, they chose it's okay to release it at this point. But I didn't know that story before, Ryan. That's an interesting story. Is that like, Rob, have you heard of that before? I have never heard the story that they purposely bought the rights to it so nobody would see it again. I didn't know that. I mean, I got to look that up, but have you heard anything about that?
I've heard similar things to that. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily true or not. But I know that that's happened in the past with other things, but I can't confirm that now.
All right.
I don't know.
It's an interesting thing you brought up there, Ryan. I dig it. Thanks for mentioning that, because I gotta look into that now, because that sounds really fascinating. That's like one of these insider Hollywood stories that I always piques my interest, and I want to know more about that. So thanks for bringing that up, dude. All right. Last question we'll have here with Rob, because he's got things he's got to do, and we've held him overtime already today. Amir writes, my dad passed away 12 years ago today. Sorry to hear that, man. It's not the fun type of anniversary you'd like to have. And on this day, I tend to watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It was the only film I ever watched at the cinema with my dad, and so it's always been one of my all-time favorites. I know it's not the best film ever. Heck, it's not even the best in the franchise. I actually do think it's the best of the franchise, but whatever. Not even the best in the franchise, but it means more to me than all other films because it's what my dad took me to see. Movies can be great carriers of memories. Amir, what you just said speaks so much to me and my heart because I've had that situation a couple of times. One, like I'm sure part of the reason Star Wars is so built into my DNA is because it's the first thing I remember my mom and I doing together. My mom showing me Star Wars for the first time. And I have I was a child. I have no other memory for like 3 or 4 years after that, before my next memory that I remember. But that was so pivotal to me and such a bonding thing. It completely stays with me. And then, of course, I've told the story before, and I thought a lot about it since. But when my best friend growing up died a couple of years ago, it really made that movie, the first Tim Burton Batman movie with Michael Keaton, all the more special to me because it was like the first time, like me and my buddy, we were kids, getting on the bus, going to downtown Hamilton to Jackson Square Mall to go into the little movie theaters they had in Jackson Square to watch this Batman movie. And that, once my friend passed away, that became a real, like, hugely special thing to me. So it is always amazing the power, Rob, that movies have to create these anchor points for us in our lives and these bonding memories we have. Do you have any particular one, Rob, that like a movie that really stands out as being special to you because of the reflection it makes of a bond that you have with somebody or did have with somebody who has since passed away?
Well, there's a couple with my father, actually. My father, when I was a movie fanatic, I would badger him into taking me to movies, like R-rated films. And there was always funny experiences like Phantasm. When Phantasm came out, it was rated R. And I was 12. And I'm like, Dad, we got to go in. And in the first 5 minutes, he took me in the movie. He was going to watch it with me. But in the first 5 minutes, the lady in lavender kills Tommy in the graveyard after they had sex, stabs him brutally. And my dad gets up and leaves. And he went and smoked a cigar for, another 90 minutes while I watched the movie. He snuck me into Dawn of the Dead, But my favorite was when I convinced him to take a bunch of friends and I to see Escape from New York. And he had to get us in. He had to buy us the tickets. And when we were driving there, he's like, Escape from New York, what's that about? And I said to my dad, I gave him the ad line. I said, well, Dad, in 1997, New York City is a walled maximum security prison. Breaking out is impossible. Breaking in is insane. And my dad's like, that sounds pretty good. Can I go with you boys? And he did. He took us all. He took me and my friends in, and he was going to buy us tickets and then leave, but he actually watched Escape from New York with us, and he was like, "That was really good. I like that." So I convinced him to go with me to a lot of movies when I was a kid, and he put up with it because he knew I wouldn't stop. I wouldn't shut up.
I know another one you have because I was there with you. I remember Avengers Endgame did a screening on the Disney lot, and I took you were my plus one. We went to go see that together. I remember we went to Big Mama's and Papa's and had lunch first. We went to Big Mama's and Papa's, had lunch, and then we went there to see it. And I remember when we got there, you saying to me, when last year, when Infinity War came out, I was in this same situation, but it was Schnepp who brought me to come see Infinity War. And I remember you even saw a few other people there that remember being all there together with Schnepp the year before. Yeah. And that was a real moment for you. Just talk about that for a second, that moment.
You're absolutely right. I mean, sitting next to Schnepp and Coy and Amy, but I was sitting next to John, and he was bouncing up and down in his seat during Infinity War. And when we first heard the Red Skull's voice, even though it wasn't Hugo Weaving, it still was a perfect sound alike. And John and I, we it was one of those things where you turn to your friend and go, oh my God, we both did that at the same time. And it was this just unbridled, just geeky joy. We couldn't believe that the Red Skull is on Vormir. Oh my God. And we both were literally going to jump out of our seats. But we also realized that every nerd journalist in Hollywood is in the same theater, and if we talk or we did something, people would write about it, or they'd make fun of us, or Film Gob would have made a video about this or something, and so we had to like tone it down, and then we're just like, yeah, and it was, I don't think I've ever sat next to anyone in a movie in my life that kept getting excited as the movie moved forward. I mean, every 2 minutes, John and I were like looking at each other we couldn't contain ourselves. It was hilarious. And that was the one thing about, he would have loved Endgame. He would have loved it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally would have. And I know there've been a number of movies we've walked out of and gone, man, Schnepp would have loved that or whatever. But anyway, guys, that will do it for Robert's time here with us. He's got other things he's got to go and do. But Robert, in the meantime, we'll see you again tomorrow. But until then, where can people follow you in your adventures online?
You can follow me and argue with me and yell at me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot for being here, and we will see you again tomorrow, my friend.
All right, man.
Have a good one. All right, guys, we still have some time here, so we're going to fire through a whole bunch more questions that you guys have sent in. Let's get things going here with Murray Reich, who writes, I saw Sonic, and I have to say the movie was cute, funny, dumb, but with a lot of heart. Great message about friendship. Best part was Jim Carrey. I completely agree. Carrey killed it. Jim Carrey being old Jim Carrey of the 90s, like Ace Ventura, The Mask, etc. Wasn't great, wasn't bad, but I left having a good time. And Murray, at the end of the day, that's really all you can ask for, right? Is hopefully we go and have a good time. And I didn't have a great time at it, but oh my God, I had such a better time at it than I thought it would. And you're right. There's some laughs. It's cute. It's got some heart to it, some nice messages in here and there. It was so much better than I thought it would be, and it was a real pleasant surprise. I'm glad you had a good time. All right, Mandalorian of Gondor writes, hey, John, I recently started reading a Star Wars novels, and I'm halfway through Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. I'm loving the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. It kind of gives me more appreciation for them in episode 1. Have you read it or ever plan to? I have not read it, despite the fact that I love Claudia Gray. I've read, I think, every other Star Wars novel that Claudia Gray has written, and I've always enjoyed her novels, particularly Lost Stars. Lost Stars is her best and one of the best Star Wars novels written. It's really wonderful. Haven't read Qui-Gon, Master and Apprentice. Master and Commander was brought up earlier in the show. Haven't read Master and Apprentice. I don't really plan on it. I've kind of tapped out on the Star Wars novels for the most part, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe at some point, maybe I'll get the Audible version of it. They do Star Wars does a great job with their Audible productions because they're like full, like theatrical productions coming through your headphones. They do a really good job. So maybe at some point I'll check that out, but I'm glad you're enjoying it, Mandalorian. All right. I'm effing Shomer Shabos writes, one of two. I started watching the new Amazon series Hunters. It stars Al Pacino and Logan Lerman. I love Logan Lerman. A diverse band of Nazi hunters living in 1977 New York City discovered hundreds of high-ranking Nazi officials are conspiring to create a Fourth Reich in the U.S. The eclectic team will set out on a bloody quest to bring them to justice. I actually like the show. It's like Inglourious Bastards, but not directed by Quentin Tarantino. I was very excited for it. But then I heard a bunch of people I know say, the show's not bad, but it's actually not great. But Al Pacino is fantastic in it, right? So it kind of diminished my enthusiasm to check it out. And I'm an Amazon Prime member, so I can watch it anytime I like. But since hearing that, I've had a bunch of people, including you now, Evan Shomer, saying that they actually really, really enjoyed it. And so I'm thinking today, I might have to take, I think maybe during my lunch break today, I'm going to have to sit down and watch that. I think I'm going to have to sit down and watch it because, I'm hearing from so many of you guys that are watching that you're really enjoying it at this point. So I'm thinking maybe I need to jump on board too. All right. Thanks for the recommendation, man. All right. Royce Freeman writes, I wrote a short film which I will direct about women fighting back against the sleazy filmmaker. Some women support me doing it and others say a man shouldn't tell that story. Thoughts? I mean, everybody's going to have an opinion about anything like that. I think as long as you are a storyteller, listen, I can tell the story of Jack and the Beanstalk even though I've never climbed a beanstalk. Okay? So that's fine. I think though, when you're talking about something that you can't possibly have any firsthand experience with, make sure it becomes incumbent upon you to make sure you talk to people who have. You know, I think it's important that you talk to people who have. If you're going to touch on situations like that, I think any storyteller can tell any story. But I think if it's something that you don't have firsthand information of, make sure you do everything you can do to put yourself in touch with the issues are at hand. Otherwise, you do really run the risk of misrepresenting important issues. So yes, I do believe men can tell those stories. Just like I believe a female director can direct a movie about an NFL player. She's never been an NFL player, that's fine, but I believe she can still tell a story about it as long as she does the work to get up to speed on and talk to a lot of people who were and are. I believe the same is true of that as well. That may not be what everybody thinks, and that's perfectly fine, but that's how I think about it. All right, Mi Vida Mocha writes, what's your beef with Ahsoka? I would like to know. I don't know. It's just a terrible character. That's all. Just look, there are lots of characters in television movies that I think are just stupid, terrible characters. That's one of them. I think that's a stupid, terrible character. I don't think Ahsoka is quite as bad as like Jar Jar Binks, but like that's another Star Wars character that I just think is a stupid character. I think Ahsoka is a stupid character. Other people love her, and that's fine. I think it's a stupid character. All right, Dan Ketchum writes, do you think there's any chance they will give us a movie based on the Batman Who Laughs? I don't. I know it would have to be separate and apart from the main universe, just like Joker, with a good horror director. I think it could be pretty good. Look, anything can be pretty good. And yeah, listen, I got turned on to the Batman Who Laughs just a couple of months ago. I was actually at Universal City Walk. I was in the comic shop there, as I always do when I go to Universal City Walk, and I'm picking up some stories. And one of the staff members started talking to me about the Batman Who Laughs. And that's really was when I first got turned on to him. And you're right. It's a fascinating story, but I believe it's fascinating for those who are already deep in comic book lore, and particularly in Batman and Joker lore. I don't know if it's something that would work for the average movie-going audience, to be honest with you. It could. Again, it all comes down to execution, so it's possible. But listen, if you are a comic fan and you are kind of versed about, you really should check out the Batman Who Laughs, because it's a very unique take. It's a very, very unique take. All right. Django 19 writes, John, I know you say video games aren't meant to be movies, so don't you think you're missing out on the gameplay experience of great games like Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War? Instead of watching the cutscene movies, will you actually play Last of Us 2? No. It's because I'm not a console game player. I'm just not. So it's like saying, oh, you're missing out on this. Yeah, but that's not something that interests me. Like, I'm really more of a RTS kind of gamer, more of a role-playing game kind of gamer. I'm definitely exclusively a PC gamer. I have a Nintendo Switch. I have a PlayStation Pro 4. I do pick it up once in a while, but I am really not. That's not something that appeals to me. It's not the way my brain works. Like, I'd rather hop online and play, a World of Warcraft, or I'd rather jump on and play Elder Scrolls, or I'd rather jump on and play StarCraft, or I'd rather jump on and play, Unreal, or I'd rather play a PC game. It's just what I am. I'm not saying other people should feel that way. I'm just saying I've tried the console controller thing. It's not the way my brain is wired. My brain is wired for keyboard and mouse. So so there you go. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much for that. If it's a question, we will answer it now, and we will answer it in its upcoming standalone video. Give it a couple of weeks, but keep your eyes open for it. We'll get around to it. All right. Anonymous writes, 2 parts. DC Comics is going through some drama, with rumors of publishing closing or being sold. Not a big rumor person, but sales suck. Is it time for comics to go full streaming? Could that save comics and attract new readers? I understand Marvel and DC participate in streaming already, but Disney Plus and HBO Max, I feel like it could be much better homes to attract new fans. Could one show budget cover a whole comic line, and is it worth it? Listen since late 2012 and more. Well, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. First of all, I don't buy the rumor that they're thinking about closing down DC Comics. I don't buy that rumor at all. I haven't seen one shred of evidence that is even remotely true. That doesn't mean it's not impossible that it could be true. That doesn't mean it's impossible that it could be true. But I'm not going to waste my time and worry about things that there's a possibility. I'll wait till there's actually something concrete to worry about. And as of right now, there's actually no legitimate information to suggest that they might close down DC Comics. Not that I've seen at any rate. Maybe there is information out there that I haven't seen, but nothing that I've seen suggests to me that there's a real possibility that's legit. It could be, but until I see something more concrete, I'll worry about it then. So as of right now, I'm not worried about it. When you're talking about putting it to going full streaming, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Do you mean that make a show out of all these things? Well, that's cost prohibitive. Or do you mean like what the DC streaming service does right now, in that you can actually go on, if you have the DC streaming service, you may not know this, you can actually go on and read the comics right on there. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. But if you mean, but just go full television series, that's pretty cost prohibitive, because it costs a hell of a lot more money to make a television series than it does to make a comic book. So I'm not really sure. But again, as time passes, we will look into this and we'll see if there any truth comes out of all these rumors. But I really don't buy them. I don't buy them for a second. But you never know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll keep our eyes on it. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, man. And sorry, and your name was actually Embrace Nerd. There you go. Good name for that. Thanks for sending that in. And again, we'll address it in its own standalone video in a couple of weeks' time. Keep your eyes open for that. So thank you again, man. All right. James LH writes, "Hey, John, it's the 24th of February, 4 weeks on the 4th of March. The UK finally joins the world of Disney Plus." Oh, that's exciting for you guys. Pre-order made. Fun question. In the UK, it's Shrove Tuesday tomorrow, also known as Pancake Day. I've never heard of that. As a Canadian, you talked about Boxing Day. Is something else you know of? If you're asking me, if you're asking me if I've ever heard of Shrove Tuesday, pancake, I have never heard of that. But I will tell you, James, as a personal fan of pancakes, I am intrigued by what you're talking about. Please do tell me more. But it doesn't sound like it's anything remotely similar to Boxing Day in Canada, but I have never heard of Shrove Tuesday. This is a new thing to me. You've opened up my world to more possibilities in the universe of cuisine. Thank you for sharing that, James. All right, James also writes, regarding Parasite, I was reading about the black and white version put together by Bong Joon-ho. Curious to see it. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be shown in the UK, but hope they release it alongside the original Blu-ray like with Logan. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm going to say something unpopular. It doesn't make the movie any better. I mean, look, watching Logan in black and white is a cool kind of little thing, but it doesn't make the movie any better. It's just, I don't know. It's not something that gets me excited. A black and white version. Okay, I can do that anytime I want. I can put a movie up on my monitor and just change my saturation of my monitor to 0. And there, I'm watching every movie I want in black and white. I don't know. It's a neat little thing, but I honestly don't think it makes the movie any better. Now, you could make an argument that a movie that is intended to be black and white from the beginning, there might be something to that, because then the filmmaker is wanting to use black and white specifically for a purpose in their film, like The Lighthouse, for example. But just taking a movie that was created to be in color and then just taking out the color and making it black and white, I don't know that it makes it any better. Even with Logan. I mean, again, a cool experience, but I don't know. It doesn't make the movie any better. It doesn't make it a different movie. Yeah, I get over the novelty of it pretty quick, so I'm not quite sure I'm all that interested in it. And I love Parasite. Oh my God, I love Parasite. All right, James LH also writes, one of two. Hey guys, Spielberg and Lucas are good friends, but very different. Lucas doesn't enjoy directing, working with actors, preferring the editing process. Spielberg is a director working with actors of all ages, possibly the best working with children. The reason I bring this up, I was curious which you enjoy more. Pre-production, like all the prep of shooting scripts, storyboarding, or do you like being on set, filming, working with the crew, or do you prefer the editing and the post-production? Thanks. Ooh, that's a great question, James. That is a great question. As somebody who has made a little crappy movie of his own, I will tell you what, I preferred the pre and post production to the production. I actually preferred the whole process of preparing to shoot a movie and the writing of it, the charting it, doing everything you need to do, getting it all in place, putting all the pieces to the puzzle in place. And then the post-production, taking all the footage and making the movie come together. I preferred those things over the actual directing, which is why I've said before that if I ever do make another narrative film, because I'm making a documentary right now, which is different. But if I were ever to make I guess I'll take my headphones off. If I was ever going to make another narrative film, I would probably not direct. I would probably have more fun as a producer, kind of overseeing the pre-production of it, help guiding the post-production, things like that. Oh, obviously a director is heavily involved in that as well. But I think I personally prefer the pre and post production. I'm a little bit more like George Lucas than Steven Spielberg in that way, I guess. It's a great question, but that's kind of how I feel about it. All right. Just got time for a few more questions here, guys, and then we're going to have to wrap it up for the day. Winso writes, there's a Valkyrie with Pegasus Funko you must have. Ooh, I don't think I've seen that one yet. I think I would, obviously I'm a bit of a fan of Funkos. I think I would have to check that one out. That sounds pretty badass. All right, Av Callie writes, do you think Man of Steel is becoming a cult movie? No, not really. I mean, remember, I don't think a movie that makes over $600 million at the box office can ever be considered a cult movie. Hold on a second. Let me just look this up here. Man of Steel box office. I just want to get the final number. $668 million. I don't think a movie that makes $668 million at the box office can be considered a cult movie, because a hell of a lot of people saw it. But it's gaining in popularity. I think more and more people are turning around to it as time goes on, but still a lot of people don't like it. It is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. Loki is my favorite, writes, hey, John, do you remember the first real adult movie you saw? Yes, I do. And did you understand it? I thought I did. Probably not totally. I'm older than you guys, so mine was they shoot horses, don't they? When I was 13, thought I understood it, realized later I didn't. Did recognize the great acting. Yeah, look, come on. It's part of a rite of passage. Every guy, now, I only say guy because I can't speak for the female experience because I'm not female, so I don't know. So I'm only saying guy, not to say it's only for us guys. I'm just saying that's just where my experience is limited to. But we know as guys, one of the rites of passage we have as guys is the first porn we've ever seen. Come on, we all know it. It is. And we all remember our first exposure, that whether it's the first VHS tape we found and played, or, the iconic, infamous, I found a bag of dirty magazines in the forest by the house, whatever it is, we all remember it. And we all probably didn't understand it nearly as much as we thought we did. All right. Chris Hunt writes, hey, John, tough loss Saturday against the Hurricanes. Yes. Friendly roast from a Habs fan. Yes. But what a great story about the Zamboni driver. If you guys didn't hear about this, a Zamboni driver, the guy who cleans the ice in between things, he was listed as an emergency backup goaltender. Like if your goaltender got injured and the backup got injured, then you were like an emergency backup guy who happened to be in Toronto. The Carolina Hurricanes were in that situation where they had to go and get the Zamboni driver to put on equipment and go in and play goalie in a professional sports game, and he won. They got to make a movie about this at some point. Ghostface999 writes, Catholic Lent approaches, which means it's my yearly tradition to watch 11 times Oscar-winning 1959 Ben-Hur. Can't wait to blast Mikolas Rosa's soundtrack for 40 days and 40 nights. God, we were talking about Ben-Hur the other day. It is an absolutely magnificent film. And you watch it today and you try to wrap your head around how on earth did they make this movie? How on earth did they make this movie without CGI, without all of today's visual effects, how on earth did you pull it off? It is a remarkable film and you absolutely must check it out. Okay, guys. That will do it for today. For everybody else with still questions outstanding, from Patrick Conway, Jack Hamilton, Blackwater, Double Crit, and everybody else, do not worry. We're either going to answer all your remaining questions in a standalone follow-up video, a companion video later today, or I think that's what we're going to do. But if for whatever reason we don't get around to it, we're going to start tomorrow's show with your questions. So do not worry about it. You're either going to see your questions answered in a companion video a little bit later, or we'll start off tomorrow's show with your questions. Either way, you sent in questions. Your questions are getting answered. So thank you for that. All right, guys. That will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here and adding his gloriousness to this show. Thank you to all of you guys for being here and being a part of the show and making this show a part of your daily routine. It's an awesome honor and privilege that you do that. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here, thank you very much for that. All right, guys, I got to get running. I've got to go make my lunch, eat, and then we're going off, hitting the road, doing some more filming for the documentary that we're doing today that I'm very excited about. So, and I'll hopefully be able to share more details with you guys soon. Of course, you guys know I'm making a documentary about the world and the development, and the history, and the importance of movie trailers. So, doing that. Hopefully, it doesn't turn out to be a big bag of crap. Anyway, that will do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. My name, of course, is John Campea, and until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.